Speaking of what you were talking about the other day, about the differences between how men and women are perceived on set.
Right. So Hugh Grant recently was in an interview promoting the new movie Wonka, where he's an Oompa Loompa. And instead of saying something positive about the movie, he just said that he hated making Wonka. And he did it because, quote, I have lots of children and need money. And Jacob Elordi said something similar.
Hugh Grant said that?
He said he's like this. He's very like this. He's very
But I mean, Jacob Elordi said the same thing about doing, I think, the Kissing Booth movies for Netflix. This is like a trend right now.
One of my favorites recently, I think I mentioned the other day that I was watching this interview that Kumail Nanjiani did with Chris Weitz, who did American Pie, but he also did a bunch of other very popular movies. One of which he did was one of the 50 Shades of Grey movies. It was either 50 it was either 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight. I think it was Twilight. So he did one of the Twilight movies. He goes, and he says like, oh, I love the author, and the script was fine, and I have a very nice house.
Yeah,
which is just him saying like it was
I feel
a
like
good
it's
paycheck.
very trendy to just say that you did something for the money in Hollywood now. Like Taika Waititi just did the same thing with his Thor movies. He said, I have a lot of kids' mouths to feed, so it is what it is.
I would rather they did that than pretend like they care about something that they don't actually care about, because we can see it through it a mile away. When these actresses or actors say, "Oh, I loved comics growing up," no, you didn't.
Well, the point is,
you likely didn't.
Rachel Zegler also said this when she was asked why she took a role in the DCEU.
Yes.
And I saw this quote tweet. Every time a man says this and gets praised for being real and hilarious, I think about how people treated Rachel Zegler when she said she was in Shazam because she needed a job.
Nobody cared about this comment from her. They're
obviously
lying.
I didn't know that it happened.
I'd never seen that clip of her before it was compared to men saying the same thing. That was obviously not what she was getting hate for. We're going to talk about her sit down with Halle Bailey soon. But
the way men and women are perceived in these roles, not their acting roles, but their roles as actors, as performers, is different. It's cool for men to be aloof and a bit disinterested. When women do these things, it's pageant syndrome, right? You're supposed to appear warm, you're supposed to appear engaged, you're supposed to appear magnanimous and as if you really, really care about it. Whereas a guy, it's a little bit cooler if a guy acts disinterested. If a guy is like, especially if he's good at his job, right? If the guy's like, oh, I just did it for the money, but he's really good at it.
Well, Henry Cavill didn't do that.
No, I mean, one example doesn't mean all are like that. I'm just saying that on the whole, men will be given leeway in this realm in the way that women are not.
So it's difficult for them to be pleasant and warm and nice.
Well, also,
men?
For the women, they don't like it. Clearly.
They don't like it.
They're complaining about it.
Yes.
Is it hard for the men to act aloof?
And men, and Henry Cavill doing that was related directly to properties connected to fandom. Like, I don't know if I believe that Henry Cavill has super strong opinions about Argyle or super strong opinions about the man from, I mean, he might have strong opinions about the man from U.N.C.L.E.
Well,
I don't
in these
know,
situations, we're talking about franchises.
yes.
So Wonka, I guess that's a franchise now.
Yeah.
DC, that's a franchise.
But Rachel Zegler playing a Disney princess is vastly different than Hugh Grant playing an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
And having to listen to Timothée Chalamet talk about his Oompa Loompa dump truck.
Yeah, like there's just
that really happened.
There's no reason for people to assume that men and women are supposed to react to these things in the same way.
Yeah.
I think what sells a man, like a man's persona to the public, is different than what sells a woman's persona to the public.
Yeah, I mean that should be plainly obvious to anyone that would look. Like this idea that men and women are the same, that human beings are blank slates, and that everything is written onto you by your surroundings. That's not true. That is a lie.
It's imprinted on you then
No, we're a mix. We're a mix of nature and nurture.
Yeah, so that age-old question is actually something closer to the middle.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, I think that it's probably 70-30. You can influence people, but there's only so much you can do it with someone that has started with a certain type of, certain temperament. And when it comes to things like, male or female, you can't do anything about it. We can, as a society, allow trans people or cater to trans people and say, we'll use your pronouns and we'll allow you to use, to live your life as the opposite sex. But it doesn't change the actual fact that you are not ever going to be the opposite sex. You're always going to be the base sex that you were born, So I think that, yeah, I mean, I just think that I kind of lost where I was going. So
also, if you really think about it, like her example, because Rachel Zegler, like, people are assuming that when they think about her making those comments, they're thinking about her having that opinion about Snow White, not necessarily Shazam, in which she doesn't really have a whole lot of connection to. People would be upset if Tom Cruise was suddenly like, yeah, I just made Mission Impossible 9 because it was worth a lot of money. They would want him to be invested in the character because it's his character.
Okay.
Right?
So see, it's not always the case that men should be aloof
always.
and
I
disinterested.
think that there's partially a difference between men and women, and partially the men that are making these comments are making them about franchises that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about the Kissing Booth.
The big, the real big name actors, like the real top actors. I can't think of any of the actual big name guys that come across as aloof and serious about it. They come across playing, like Tom Cruise, or you wouldn't see Brad Pitt, Clooney, like the big name. Like they might play at these kind of ideas, but you wouldn't see them coming across actually poo-pooing it.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Pattinson was pretty open about the fact that he hated making Twilight movies.
Is Robert Pattinson on the same level as Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt?
Is he not
Batman.
now?
He's Batman now.
He's
so
Batman, and he's a pretty big deal now.
He's a pretty big deal right now. Yeah,
Maybe not.
But he's also British, so he, like, a lot of times they'll be like, he's got, because people were okay. That's actually a good example. That's a really good example because he made comments where he said that I'm not working out to get in shape for Batman, and people were pissed.
Wasn't he already in shape?
People were pissed about this, and then what people didn't get is that it was essentially just his kind of wry sense of humor that people weren't picking up on because it was like a printed interview, which was then translated and done into all these videos. So people were mad about that because people care.
Right, there's no way that wasn't in his contract.
So people care about the Batman character the way that men care about the Batman character, the way that women would care about Snow White. So men hearing Robert Pattinson not treating that character with any amount of deference would piss them off the same way it would piss off people hearing someone like Rachel Zegler supposedly complain about having to take Snow White as a job, even though that's not what she was talking about. She was talking about Shazam.
Right.
So I do think that there's more comparisons there than they think about. I just think that men are different, and they have a really big problem admitting that you're just going to be treated a little bit differently based on your gender.
Right, they're not double standards; they're just standards.
Yeah, and in the same way, like you might look at somebody like if Jacob Elordi was like, oh my God, I loved doing these lame Netflix romantic comedies. People are like, that's kind of lame.
Well, it sucks because then they asked his co-stars, and Joey King was like, I'm really sorry that he felt that way. Everyone loved making those movies. Everyone else had a great time.
He's like, well, I didn't. So what? Like, and half of them are probably lying, right? Like half of them are probably lying. They're not telling the truth. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.